Hello and welcome to a Gooner Ramble. I'm your host James, and joining me we've got regulars Akhil. Akhil, how you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. And we've got Woes with a bit of a sore voice, but Woes, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, JJ. Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Good.
Yeah. Rough night, was it?
It was a rough. I'd say more of a rough, long day than a rough fight. But yeah, it was a good, and I enjoyed it. And
yeah, you do sound a bit rough.
Yeah, 6,000
you do sound a bit
up
rough.
there. Yeah, it's not alcohol hangover rough. It's shouting at the top of my voice rough. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, a bit of both, I'd say. I'm not completely guilt free, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you were both there. I got the WhatsApp messages. You were starting quite early with the old drinkage.
Yeah, I mean, it's just for some reason you decide for games like that you're going to get on it. It's match of the day. FA Cup third round, Preston away, 5:30 kickoff, 6,000 Gooners. It's just them kind of games that you live for, and there's just something special about going to an unknown quantity away, a lower league club. It's just something good about it, especially with an allocation so large. And there's a lot of Northern Arsenal fans that got the opportunity to go that don't normally go and things like that. So it's always a good atmosphere. And well, by all means, just get up there and get on it early. If you're going to pay over £100 for a train there, you might as well enjoy it.
Very true. Were you guys both there when the lineup was announced? You know, obviously Clive calls it the best hour of Twitter when the lineup's announced because everybody's kicking off and moaning about everything. What was the consensus in the ground, really? Was there a bit of worry, or was there more of, they're, apart from Maitland-Niles at right back, they're all more than capable, these lot?
I mean, I tend to avoid Twitter on match days generally. Just I use it to post a few pictures and maybe use it a little bit on the way home. But so generally when lineups are kind of announced, we have a look at them and we just kind of, we can't control it, we can't change it. It's one of those things that we potentially don't have a massive opinion on it, and I guess if you're going to sort of have an opinion, talk about it, that's one less drink, is the way I look at it. So it's kind of, it was pretty strong. And you look at sort of today as well, and you look at sort of the Liverpool and teams like that, and you think actually, yeah, ours was quite strong. And Arsene Wenger did say a couple of times pre-game as well, and he said it again at the end, I think, about that, he played his strongest team. He rested Alexis because he played a lot of games. Koscielny came off the other night jaded. So it was kind of, Hector Bellerin injured himself slightly the day before, but I think it's probably a very minor injury, and he probably kind of was rested. But generally it was quite strong. So you thought, it's a strong team. It should be good enough to win. So let's play the game.
And was?
Yeah, certainly had enough to win the game, no two ways about it. And that's why you got a squad, didn't you? And I thought it was a very strong team. My only bugbear with it was when I looked at the Ox and Perez. As soon as I saw the team, I knew that it'd be Perez on the right and Ox on the left, which broke my heart a little bit. But like Akhil says, I mean, I'm probably the polar opposite to him. I'll get too mad on the old Twitter before the game and during the game. I don't know why, but just I react like that. But I was happy with the lineup. I can't say I wasn't happy with it. I was happy to see Xhaka, Ramsey in the middle of the park, and I was interested to see how things developed. Maitland-Niles, he's a young kid, and he's a centre midfielder. But I remember a few years ago we played Coquelin out at right back in the cup against Stoke, and he got mullered that day. But Maitland-Niles seems to have a lot of ability about him, and I like the look of the lad. So yeah, especially in an experienced back four, he really, I mean, looking at that, you didn't have no qualms with it.
I think the only thing when you saw Niles and you saw Jenkinson on the bench is you kind of feared for Jenkinson. I mean, I think if you ask most Arsenal fans, they'll probably admit that he's probably not good enough. He gets a bit of sympathy because of his history with the club. The fact that his dad still has a season ticket, and sort of we all know the family sort of history. So you kind of have a bit of sympathy because he's kind of like a fan playing for the club. But I think most will admit that he's probably not good enough, and this maybe just confirmed that. I think Arsene Wenger has said that he'll probably be allowed to go on loan, and he's kind of said that the party line, if there's one thing Arsene Wenger is, he's certainly media trained, and he's talked about Jenkinson, maybe the injury, he was just coming back and he just suffered from a lack of confidence and stuff, because really he's not going to say he's not good enough. So, but I think that just kind of, I think that kind of it highlighted that, I think he was literally making up the numbers there and stuff like that. I don't even remember him warming up, but he might have warmed up. It was the other end from us, but I just think that was probably the only thing that you noticed. And I guess if there was, I think I do remember saying, oh, that's Xhaka and Giroud playing sort of every minute of every game so far over the Christmas period. So that was the other thing that you thought, okay, they are going to be 60, 70 minutes in. I expected them to be quite tired, but obviously Giroud pops up and scores the winner, so it proved me wrong. But that was probably the only thing I thought about in that minute or two of the team.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine, when I said, he's gone with Maitland-Niles instead of Jenkinson, he went, well, it's harder to loan him or sell him when he's cup tied, isn't it? So I was like, well, yeah, maybe you're onto something there. But going into it, the setup, like you said, was with the inverted wingers and everything else. So I thought we looked absolutely shocking, just like straight from the start. They were clearly like, right, well, Perez, all right, second half I can't slate him, but he doesn't really track back. He doesn't help out there, and Chamberlain as well was a bit lackluster going back as well first half. But they were just, I think Clive put a tweet out there and said something about it. It just clearly, if you're a team and you see it, just run at Arsenal, because they struggle with it. But you simply replied, do you think it was more the inversion? Do you want to go a bit more into that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, first things first, it's happening too often that we're coming out of the blocks of games so slow. I mean, it's almost as if we've got a swagger like we're 4-0 up, but the game's just kicked off, and it's strange, because all of a sudden when they do click in gear, we look like such a good team, and I just thought that the Bournemouth, the first 20 minutes of Bournemouth with the inversion, and then obviously there was the injury, and Ramsey went deeper, and we put Ox out wide right, and we started to look a bit more comfortable. And I actually think it creates so many issues all over the park. Like Ox, I mean, for all his abilities, I just think he's naturally better suited to the right wing, and Perez left-footed, and every time he's popped up on the left side of the box, or his runs are incisive, he's got a fantastic left foot, his link play with Giroud starts happening. And I think the first 45, we almost stifled ourselves. And like you said, it's not just a knock-on from our attacking play. I think it affects the central midfielders. I think where there's no wingers tracking back, because I don't always think it's because they don't want to do it. I just think they're not switched on. They're not naturally aware of. It's very difficult to adjust. Like, if you're a left back, you wouldn't all of a sudden play a left back, right back for 20 games. It's very difficult, and you get away with it more of an attacker, because in the final third they could cut inside and affect the game better. But it's very difficult, and I think the centre midfielders, we were just getting overrun, and Preston knew what to do. They had obviously done their homework, and it's a similar thing we've seen against a lot of what I'd call lesser teams. No disrespect to them, but a lot of teams have, especially at the Emirates and that, they've preyed on this inverted system and found ways of getting around it. And Monreal, again, was left horrifically exposed, and we saw the goal come from that. The players were dancing through our midfield, because I don't think they knew whether to come or go, whether to cover out wide, but the spacings between them were too big, and I just think it causes absolute carnage with Ox on the left and Perez on the right. And I don't know, I was just screaming the whole first half. You could just see, I felt I could just see that we was just crying out just to switch him. He didn't even try it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just to try and switch things up a bit. And really, if we're honest, we were lucky to be just 1-0 down, I think, in that first half. I don't know what Axe thought, but it really was lacklustre. I was really disappointed.
Yeah, I always think, to switch your wingers, it's kind of, it makes sense, because, once the fullback if the fullback has to keep changing who he's facing, I don't mean keep changing it, but, in a game, I mean, even during sort of the early 2000s and like I remember Freddie and Robert Perez changing over, and all right, granted they didn't change over that much because they normally didn't need to because we were normally doing quite well, but they did, a couple of times they did sort of switch it around a little bit and stuff, and I just think it gives the fullback maybe something else to think about. I do remember an example, maybe last season or season before when Joel Campbell was playing right, Theo Walcott left, and then he switched them round, and I think Joel Campbell got the goal from the left.
Yeah, Sunderland.
Sunderland,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was at that
Sunderland.
one. Yeah, I was at that one.
exactly, and it just kind of it gave the fullback and the right sided centre back something else to think about, because with Walcott on the left, you knew he was going to always cut inside, and that because he was right footed, but with Joel it just gave him something different, and it was a left footed finish as well, I think. So yeah, I think to switch them round sometimes, I don't know, would be. To me, it would make sense, but I mean, kind of what do I know? But in terms of, I think we were lucky to be only one down, at half time. Some people obviously said we should have been 5 or 6, but I think if you're truthful, you probably would say 3. There's one sort of off the line by Monreal, perhaps wasn't quite on the line, but it was sort of Monreal cleared, and then there was the other one, which, the slider, that sort of Gaza type dive in 96, that sort of one, when I think the lad from the right sort of put it through and Gabriel played them onside. So, it certainly should have been 3, and I think I sort of watched part of the game again today, and Arsene Wenger again did mention at the end in his interview that probably the only positive from the first half was that we were only 1 down, and then he's spot on, because we should have been 3 down, and that would have been a real that would have been a different second half then.
I mean, you talk about that one with Monreal off the line. What was Ospina thinking? Like, why did he run out that far? I don't know what he was... Because the guy would have had to... I mean, he did produce a chip and a half because the keeper was off his line, but from that angle, you've got to do something special to beat you there. But I do not know what he was running out for. I think, what was it, Gabriel was already going towards him anyway, so I don't know what he was... I just don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, everyone's slating Sheck and saying, Ospina, this is your time to sort of push on. A bit like when Fabianski got the nod a few years back. But
there was one, I can't remember the moment. It wasn't a very big moment, so it wouldn't have even made the highlights package. But there was a moment when people were shouting for Ospina to kind of come out a bit quicker, and I can't remember where it was or when it was, but I don't think the ball even reached him in the end. But there was a moment, and I don't know, maybe something like that was in his mind or something. I don't know. But hey.
And I mean, we had from what I counted, really, the 2 best chances were obviously Aaron Ramsey didn't pull the trigger. I think he had 2 decent opportunities too. I don't know what happened there, sadly. And then at the end, I don't know if it was would you call it a cross or a shot from Giroud? I thought it was a cross personally. But what did
we also had that header from Ramble as well.
Oh yeah, that's the other one as well.
First, yeah.
Good purchase on, but he needed to direct it. He got the power, just didn't direct it at all.
Either side, and that was in, wasn't it? Probably.
That's the kind of Aaron Ramsey run that we come accustomed to from deep midfield, and we do miss that. We do miss that at times, and now he's got one. I'm hoping that them sort of chances do start in the back of the net.
Start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, over the last 4 or 5 games, he's had fleeting appearances, but when he has come on the pitch, we've seen him, like you was talking about that chance, JJ, where he was twisting and turning, but confident Aaron Ramsey would have just put that away, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And he's probably.
That's what I was thinking. I thought to myself, this is your chance. When he done the first one, I was like, if he levers this, he's going to be a hero again.
He's probably had 3 or 4 chances like that since he's got back into the team. But he's starting to find his stride and find his feet, and it's a good time for us with obviously El Nene away and Coquelin not about for another month, and Santi out injured. Realistically, whatever people's opinions are on him, we need him to perform. And I just quickly going back onto the first goal, it was so similar to Monreal. When I look back at it, I was watching it again earlier, and Monreal had a man, and centre back, I think it was Gabriel closest to him, had a man, and they were 2 on 2, and Monreal just fell asleep, and Gabriel dropped a bit deeper, and it's a Theo Walcott-esque run in behind Monreal. He doesn't even see him going, and we just fall asleep, and it bounces about and it goes in. But the only plus side is, we did get away with a few, but Bournemouth, we really capitulated, and thankfully in this game, as Akhil said, we stayed in it, and we did create a few chances, but it was nowhere near the Arsenal we know and love, and it was just no one reacted. Wenger didn't change anything tactically. The players didn't seem to shake it up. It was just really, we were under the cosh, and it's just frustrating. I mean, I just sat there the whole of half time with my head in my hands because I was just thinking, what is going on here? Like, no disrespect to Preston, but we're Arsenal Football Club. There's 6,000 fans. We've turned up. And by the way, our reaction to going behind in the away end I thought was fantastic. We were straight away singing again, loud, and I don't know what it sounded like on the telly, but I thought our support was brilliant on the day. But
yeah, no, it was good. It did come across really well.
We just had to forget it really. As soon as we went in at 1-0, you just had to come out second half, and blimey, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, there was a moment actually in that Ramsey goal when, I mean, it was me and Tim Stillman who texted me, we both saw it, that when Ramsey was running back, he distinctively looked over to the bench and put a thumbs up, and then I think the TV caught the Wenger thumbs up back, but it was Ramsey that did it first, and you just think, I tweeted this as well, that I would love to know what that was about, because it was obviously something that's been said at half time that I don't know what it was, but something's been said and it's obviously worked, and you just think, you know, it was just one of those things I sort of noticed, and I often notice sort of strange things like that.
Did you guys see the tunnel cam video with Giroud?
I did,
he was giving him a right. I was like, cool, blimey, he's got fire under him. I loved seeing it. It was great.
Yeah, I think, you know what, when Olivier Giroud's confident, and he obviously is right now, then you know he's a leader as well, and I think he felt he had to be a leader yesterday, and obviously he was captain, but you know, he felt he had to lead on the pitch, and I think, you know, fair play to him, and just, you know, what a Christmas period sort of Olivier Giroud's had, and you know, he fully deserves the praise he's getting. You know, obviously people have opinions on celebration or non-celebration against Bournemouth, but there was no doubt here, you know, you scored the winning goal in the third round, mate, go celebrate, go enjoy yourself, because you must undeserve it. So yeah. I mean, you talk about that Ramsey goal. I said it many pods ago. I think, you know, when he gets the one, that's it for him now. But he just needs to just get that one, and I think he's going to go on a run now. Do you reckon? You're backing him there?
The thing with it, JJ, the thing I liked about it most is a lot of Ramsey's goals in the past, and I think we get a bit too obsessed with thinking, because of his goals, I think that's what everyone thinks he should be contributing, but he's sat a lot deeper alongside Xhaka, and he's decided to go when the time's right. And this goal interested me a lot because he was behind the play and he was a lot deeper and not in the, but normally he'd be in the box, and he sat off, and Iwobi done brilliantly to get the ball down and under control and lay it off, and Aaron hitting the ball from there. We know he can strike a ball, but what a finish. I mean, at first I thought that must have took a nick, like that must have been deflected round the corner, like, to go where it did. And when I saw it back, I thought, wow, he's really hit that well. And it's interesting what you said, Ax, about the thumbs up to Wenger and that. I mean, knowing Arsene Wenger, I personally think maybe he had a little arm around the shoulder and just said, look, Aaron, just relax, because the fans were getting on his back. They were. And you could sense it every time he got the ball, every time a pass was misplaced somewhere. It's just at the moment, there's a bit of a thing with Aaron Ramsey, and I'm sure it was filtering through to the pitch, and maybe at half time Wenger's just put his arm around him and said, look, you've had the chance with a header, don't panic, it will come, you know it will come. And he's obviously got the goal, and that's what I'd like to think maybe happened, but
yeah, no, I think you might be spot on, you know, and that is Wenger's style, isn't it? To kind of, he wouldn't be shouting and ranting and raving. It probably is that time. And if you remember the Ramsey's wonder season, when Arsene Wenger was asked about his goals, and he did point out then that he's always had it. He just needs to not panic and be patient and take his time. And maybe that's what, yeah, you're right. Maybe that's what he was sort of reminding Aaron Ramsey about. And just on Aaron Ramsey, I mean, on the train back, we were talking about him, and it's just, you know, he does seem one who isn't afraid of criticism. And you know, when fans do get on his back, I'm not really sure it affects him that much, actually. I think he's really strong mentally, and I think that's probably for a few reasons. You know, when he was younger, you know, he came to Arsenal at 16, 17. and then he obviously had his injury, his horrific injury that he had to come back from. That made him stronger. He then was made captain of his country by Gary Speed, who was very close to, who potentially playing styles were quite similar at times. And then obviously Gary Speed passed away and he had to deal with that as well. And then he lost the captaincy. So he's dealt with so much, and it's I know he's your boy, was, so it's kind of it's better coming from me perhaps as a someone who's maybe a bit unbiased, but he never hides. And I remember the season before he had his run season, at the end of the season, he was kind of so the end of the season before he had his wonder season, he started to play and he was kind of played in that holding position. He was tried out there and he was getting so much stick. And I remember there was one particular game at home, I can't remember who it was against, but he was getting pelters, yet he never hides. He wants that football. He keeps wanting that football, and that me I really admire in someone that he doesn't hide. And someone who I admire and like a lot, like has his kind of few. It's Theo Walcott, and maybe we share Theo Walcott, but Theo Walcott last year, when he was struggling, he was scared of the ball. He was scared of losing the ball, so he didn't want the ball at times. But Ramsey's never been like that. So, yeah, I really do hope that this goal kind of kickstarts Aaron Ramsey's season. And as was said, forget what you think of him. We do need him. We need him in that midfield. The same way we need Granit Xhaka to stay a bit more disciplined. We need Aaron Ramsey to start playing, and do what he did yesterday. At time he had that chance with the header, with the late run, which is a good run. He obviously scored a good goal. He then put the ball in for Giroud when we went a little bit more route one. So, hopefully that second half is going to kickstart the season. And I think Ramsey himself will know that he's pretty much got, the next 4 or 5 games to play. And he knows if he plays well, he's not going to be out of that team. So it's hopefully a chance for Ramsey now to think, okay, this is now my time. It's time to step up. The team needs me. The manager needs me. And, over to him sort of thing.
No, I think times, I think we can all be guilty of it, but I think Arsenal fans can see the Aaron Ramsey from a few seasons ago that scores that goal in the cup final, that literally everything he's doing is either in the back of a net or it's an assist or it's this and it's that. And you just think that's what he's going to do all the time. And it's like you've just said, Akhil, I've never questioned his work rate. I mean, I think for someone who's had so many, that injury and, like you said, he gets slated so much, he's literally now the scapegoat, I think, for the club now that Walcott's been away for a few weeks and Giroud is banging form. So I think it's Ramsey's this player now that's getting the pelters. And I've never questioned his work rate, but I think now that he's scored that goal and everything, and like you said, that thumbs up and everything, I believe he's going to go on a run now, and I can't wait because he's going to be really important, especially in this period where it's coming thick and fast.
And it's not just him, we've kind of, we as much as we all get frustrated, we need to be sorted together. We need to support the team. We need to keep going and players Ramsey, they deserve our support because they're playing for our football club. It's as simple as that. There's players that I don't particularly, potentially, I think maybe they're not as good as people say in the squad. There's some people that I think aren't maybe very nice people at times, but at the end of the day, they're playing for our football club, so we want them to succeed. So, yeah, let's hope so.
And just going to touch on the second goal. Was the other day I listened to the podcast you did midweek. You talked about Lucas Perez's running and his instincts. You said he was Eduardo-esque, and I was like, do you know what? You are spot on there. Absolutely spot on. And again, yesterday, he got the man of the match, obviously, on BBC. I think he got it on a few other ones as well. But I think this guy's got to be played more often. I think he's got to be in for maybe a few more starts. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
We had a question on that as well, didn't we, James?
Yeah. I mean, I could chuck that up once. Let's open the old Twitter open. Yeah, it was from Dougie Cazorla. He said, "Is Lucas now our most talented player and making runs in the final third?" And he said also, "Is Lucas a viable option on either flank versus Chelsea if we carry on with our 4-2-3-1?"
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And the thing with Lucas, what I do like about him is in the first half, even though he wasn't playing very well, he was very busy, and he's always busy. He's always trying. He's always looking to make things happen. He's kind of a terrier type player, and he's I think in every game I've seen him, his performance has drastically improved when he's found himself on the left hand side or playing just was both, funnily enough, these two best really has come when we're chasing games. I know he played on the right against Basel and done well, but even in that game, I thought his general gameplay wasn't as good as it has been when I see him on the left. And his movement in the final third is exceptional, like we discussed the other day. I mean, he just finds space, even for that goal. I mean, as soon as Ramsey picks up the ball, he's pinged a lovely 40-yard pass straight onto Giroud's head, but it's not by chance that Perez is there. And as soon as he gets there, he's got a picture in his head of what he wants to do with that ball when he receives it. He takes that defender out of the game. He knows the space is there for Giroud. Giroud knows that Perez is going to backheel it, and the centre-back can't get there in time. And it's just that them little split 5-yard movements in and around the box are just sensational. And I mean, I personally, Akhil loves Theo as well, and I think Theo is the king at making them movements against deep line defences from outside to in. And if we've got Perez on the left doing that and Walcott on the right, it's a very viable option. But also then Giroud's banging form, so how do you drop him? And then you've got Alexis Sanchez. I mean, clearly, I don't know the last few games whether he's been tired or not, but does he look as happy on the left wing? And we've got lots of options. This is why Wenger earns his bread, but definitely on Lucas Perez, you can clearly see the amount he contributes in the final third is something that can't be shook at, and his intelligence as a footballer, and like I said, Eduardo-esque, but he's an exciting player, and I think he's the kind of player that you could start and get something out of him, and you could also get 20 brilliant minutes out of him as well. And it's good now, and especially with the return of Wells, we've got options, but 100%, I'd have to say second half Lucas made a real difference, and he's very direct and very intelligent, and his short movements are fantastic. And Giroud is the perfect man to link with as well. Like if you're gonna look for any man out there to play link football in the box, you could ping the ball to Giroud like we saw the other day with Xhaka, smashed it at him at all sorts of speeds, and he just took all the pace off it for Lucas then, and then Lucas at the weekend returned the favour. And it's a nice little partnership between them two, and it's something that hopefully we can continue seeing a bit more of, whether it's from the start or whether it's 20 minutes to go. We do need to use these options we've got now, because it's been a while since we've had everyone fit and available, and it's starting to look now, bar in the centre of the park, but them wide areas we've got good options. And yeah, I'm very pleased with Lucas at the moment. I just prefer him a lot better when he's on the left and he's on his left foot than on the right side. Almost reminds me of Theo on the left. He takes the incisive running out of his game really, and takes away his left foot. Sort of, it's easier to defend against. But I'm very, very happy with him.
Yeah. Also, I thought second half I think someone either mentioned it to him, or maybe he was more instinctive for it because of how much he got rinsed in the first half. But he really did sort of sit back a bit deeper and help Maitland-Niles, I thought, out there. And Maitland-Niles on the overlap as well. I think his crossing's actually a bit better than Bellerin. I think Bellerin's crossing at times can be a bit iffy, but I thought some of the balls he put in yesterday were quite good from right back.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a tough game for him first half, Niles, but I mean, he's quite grew into the game a little bit, so it was certainly a good outing for him. It was good experience for him, and it'll be interesting to see if we see him much more this season.
Mm-hmm. So one thing quickly, JJ, on Maitland-Niles. One thing I'd like to say about him is it's nice for a young player to get the opportunity to play in a strong team, because in previous seasons in Carling Cup games and that, these players are thrown into the Lions' den against first teams with 11 misfit players, and you can't really judge any individual in that sort of scenario. And it's nice to see him in an experienced back four, not maybe first choice, but it weren't a million miles off. And it was good to see him play in a first 11 as such, and really get a chance to stamp his authority. But like I said, I do think eventually he'll be a central midfielder. But it's nice to see him get minutes, and it's always good to see a young lad in there performing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, just even playing, so maybe I agree. I think will be a central midfielder too. But it's that sort of mental aspect. I think days like this will help him, mentally prepare and just be able to take the nerves and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's certainly a positive. It always is when you win, isn't it? I mean, we wouldn't be saying that if we went out, maybe, but it was.
Yeah. What did you guys make of Granit Xhaka yesterday? Because there was a few that said he was fantastic. There was a few that said he was dreadful. For me, I thought he had an okay game, but the thing that I loved the most from him yesterday, which I thought was absolutely superb, and you can tell that's from when he's been a captain in the past and everything, was there's a few meaty challenges flying in yesterday. I was like, oh, we got a bit of a classic old tie here in the old FA Cup. We got a bit of a game here. But granted, Ramsey was shoving them back. Giroud was shoving, and there was a time when it got a bit meaty. But Xhaka was the one. He's dragging their players away. He's dragging ours. He's like, leave it, move over there. I thought it was going to kick off at a few stages. But Xhaka yesterday, bit of like a chaperone, just like, no, not today. Move aside. I loved that. I thought he was, shielding it. Dealing with it.
He's still growing, JJ. He's still growing into the English game. Like people forget. I mean, bearing in mind he's played. I personally think he's shattered. I think he's shattered. He's played 490 minutes, as Akhil said earlier, through Christmas, when normally he'd be having a Christmas break. And I know he didn't play a lot in the early stages of the season, and Coquelin played every minute, and now Coquelin's got a hamstring injury, and Xhaka's playing every minute. So it's almost a bit. I don't know, maybe we could utilise a bit of rotation a bit better between them two and maybe define one DM and have sort of a Xhaka and a Ramsey or a Xhaka. And also losing Cazorla hasn't helped the situation either. But, there's a lot of reservations about Xhaka and Ramsey's speed as the two in the midfield. But I just think if we're looking at individuals yesterday, I just think the whole system, it was more of an issue with a whole system rather than pinpointing individuals. We talked about the wingers not tracking back and the fullbacks being exposed and the centre midfielders having to go out into unnatural areas and being overrun in all parts of the park. I think that's something it's hard to judge players' individual qualities in a game like that when it's just mayhem. And for some reason recently, in the Bournemouth game, we were 2-0 down before we realised, and it was just, we created our own carnage for unnecessary reasons, and it's something Arsenal's really, really got to sort out, because he done a similar thing last season where our title challenge fell away. We played the same way with Olivier Giroud up front and the inverted wingers, and we were getting caught out all over the shop. And at the start of the season, we weren't doing that at all. And I think since Theo Walcott has been unavailable, without that retention of width on the right and Giroud up front, maybe Wenger doesn't feel that we can play wide. Man, I'm not too sure what it is, but granted, Xhaka, I thought looked tired, but he's still, again, Xhaka and Ramsey, both of them attempted over 100 passes again, which is what you want to see from your midfield too. I mean, you're going to miss Santi for a lot of things, but if Xhaka can do what he's doing and continue with incisive passing, and if Ramsey's pinging 40-yard balls from the centre of the park to pick out a centre forward for us to score the winner, then it's going to grow as a partnership. It really is, and I just hope that we keep seeing Xhaka get minutes, and we see Xhaka Ramsey over the next month. Clearly it's going to happen. Luckily we've got to wait till our next game, and then I think there's 7 days between our next 2 games after that as well. So with no Champions League for a couple of months, hopefully people get back to full fitness and we can go into the Chelsea game with a fully fit squad. But yeah, I just think Xhaka's suffering a little bit from a bit of fatigue at the moment, but he got through that game and played 90 minutes again, and now he gets a well-earned rest. But yeah, I like the steel to him. I like the tough side of Xhaka, and I like seeing that in players. We all do, but I just hope for the sake of our season that him and Ramsey can forge a partnership, and we find the right balance with the shape of the team as well. It's important not to just focus on one individual for me, because I think a lot of players suffered yesterday, and a lot of players suffered against Bournemouth early doors. But once we get a grip on the game, we get into it again. We really do look unstoppable. We play some quoted Wenger ball. Like it's some of it has been fantastic to watch this season. It's just about finding the right balance and consistency. And really, you'd have hoped by now we'd have had that, but I mean, we're still well in it. So there's no need to panic, but we really do need to have a little plan, and fingers crossed it comes together.
I mean, we got a question here from AFC_badge, and he did put, who is Xhaka's perfect partner? I mean, in an ideal world, you'd probably say maybe Santi, but with what we've got at the moment, it is Ramsey, isn't it? There's nothing really else you can put him with.
Yeah, I'm not sure we know his perfect partner yet. We haven't seen enough sort of him playing with everyone. So it's it's something we'll certainly find out if him and Aaron Ramsey kind of work over the next month, hopefully. But as Will says, it's dependent on so many other things about who's playing out wide, about if Giroud's playing or if Sanchez is playing up front. The game is totally different. It's a different game. So it's I'm not sure the beauty actually at the moment is we have quite a big squad and we have a lot of depth in our squad, so we can change our style. We became, as Will said, a bit predictable last year with Giroud up front. With it was all the same sort of thing, but here, once kind of we've got a few of the players back, then we suddenly we won't be predictable again, because I mean, this is something I was going to talk about, sort of the bigger picture and things. But you think for Swansea, you probably can add in Theo Walcott, Mesut Ozil back in the squad, so that suddenly you can play Walcott on the right again, as Woz says, to get your width, to return to the football we were playing earlier on in the season. And then there's a question about who does play up front, and you would think, well, we played our best football with Sanchez up front, but the last 4 games, Giroud's been fantastic. But, you kind of look at how he is physically, and there's options there. So I think that will kind of, we'll be able to plan strategically a lot more with the gaps in between games. And I mean, you sort of, I always think about the Christmas period a little bit as that time of year where actually performances, it's results over performances. And you could argue that's always the case, results over performances. But I think if you start day one thinking like that, then over time it will change. Then results won't work if your performances aren't good. You can get away with it for a bit, and I think the Christmas period is a time where you do have to get away with it a bit, and you just have to grind them out. And I think minus that sort of Bournemouth game, we've had a good Christmas period, and I mean, some of the performances were shocking. 70 minutes at Bournemouth, 45 minutes yesterday. It was shocking, and that I wasn't expecting it to be that bad. But generally over a Christmas period, I do kind of expect the odd half of maybe not playing at our full potential, but it's important to sort of get through it. So I mean, just sort of looking back as well, I think 7 points in the league out of the 3 games, plus going through to the next round of the cup is quite a good return. I mean, I would have liked 9 out of 9 because of the fixtures, but I think it's not bad. And just kind of looking and kind of sort of looking at the past sort of history, and you think last year we out of the if you think for 21 years we've got through the third round, so focusing just on the Premier League games, we last year we beat Bournemouth and we beat Newcastle, but we lost to Southampton on Boxing Day, and that was kind of that really shocking 4-0, and that was just one of the worst performances of the season. Season before that, we beat QPR and West Ham, but we again lost to Southampton. That was the Wojciech Chesney smoking incident. Season before, actually, we had won all 3. We had beaten West Ham, Newcastle and Cardiff. So that actually was a really positive sort of Christmas period. We had actually drew to Chelsea and lost to City 6-3 the week before, but that was a really positive. Season before that, we beat Newcastle, but we drew to Southampton on New Year's Day. If you remember the game, it was 1-1, and we just completely weren't in the game at all. Season before that, we drew to Wolves, we beat QPR, and we lost to Fulham. So there again, we only actually got 4 points. So there's kind of you're never going to play well throughout the period. And just to add a bit of context on that, the Invincibles, they beat Wolves, they beat Southampton, but then they drew to Bolton the week before, and they drew to Everton the week after. So even the Invincibles couldn't maintain that level of kind of performance. So I think we expect, and I think it's going to be important that going forward that we kind of start to now improve performances. I think you can get away with it, as I said, during this time, because everyone's jaded. Every team is jaded, but I think now it's when hopefully we'll see that good football return, and I think that will complement or kind of that will go with the return of players like Theo Walcott and Mesut Ozil, and obviously we've got Mustafi back, who potentially perhaps isn't fully fit in terms of match fitness yet, but hopefully after 2 games he now will be closer. We'll have Koscielny back in the team, hopefully Hector Bellerin, so you'll suddenly have that right-hand side back. That was really, that right-hand side was kind of, it was like the left-hand side of 2002, 2004 sort of thing. So you hopefully have that back. You've added Danny Welbeck in there as well. So apart from that sort of central midfielder where we are a little bit short, everywhere else we've got that depth back a little bit. So hopefully that will help performances. We can't use being jaded as an excuse. So, hopefully we have a good month. We've got games that on paper we should win. And then, hopefully we get a good draw in the cup as well. And then we kind of go to that Chelsea game and it's and we see what happens there. Potentially maybe try something a bit different there. But, it's all about sort of having a good January now.
You just mentioned Danny Welbeck in the statement you made there, Akhil. Yesterday, the commentators were going on for ages about, and in his interview as well, Wenger was saying, Danny Welbeck, he's definitely going to get half hour. You guys were singing his name from half time. The majority of this game, I could hear Danny Welbeck. So I was like, well, surely he's going to come on now. He got 7 minutes, 8 minutes?
Yeah, I saw that interview actually you're talking about, and Wenger said, he could, when they asked him about Welbeck, he goes, well, he could play about 30 minutes kind of thing. So I think if we had gone 2 down, you might have seen him a little bit earlier. But I mean, I do.
Oh, you reckon they twisted his words?
They haven't twisted his words, but he said he can play up to 30 minutes sort of thing. So that's not saying it's a definite 30 minutes. It's just saying that's the most he could probably manage. So I think the one thing with that was, and we were singing his name, he was warming up. The one thing I was a little bit concerned about, and you kind of mentioned it on the Granit Xhaka point, that there were some meaty challenges going about, and it was a proper cup tie. And that did worry me a little bit with Danny Welbeck coming on, because when you've had a long injury, the first couple of tackles, you are a little bit wary. And I thought, I don't know if that was one of the reasons why he didn't come on earlier, or if one of the reasons was because actually we were playing a bit better and, it was kind of starting to work a little bit. So maybe it's not a good idea to change it too early. I don't know. But physically, I was thinking that, this is a game where you would have loved to just, play Danny Welbeck for 20 minutes at home against someone who doesn't really tackle. But this wasn't Preston. So, yeah, maybe that was a reason. But I'm not sure what was things. But that was just an inkling I got.
Yeah, well, we've missed him for so long. It's what you do with all players that are out for a while. You remember them as world-class footballers as such. And I like Welbs a lot. I really do like him, and he gives us an entirely different option, especially on that left side. But we've got Perez, and we've got a lot of options. And I think why a lot of people like Welbeck is his direct approach, and he's just literally, can I run forward? Can I shoot? Can I score? That's what you get from Welbs, and he gives you 110%, and has a cracking strike at the end. And I was glad to see him back on the pitch. It's never nice to see players miss that long through football, but everyone talks about how Arsenal are best when they're fast Arsenal and not slow Arsenal, and I tend to agree with that. But I think that's just popping back onto Giroud very quickly. I mean, he's getting the goals, but the style of football has not been as good. But a lot of people suggest that Giroud epitomises what slow Arsenal is, but I don't think that's actually down to him. I think it's the way that we're setting the team up around him, and with the inversion of the wingers. I mean, I don't know about you, Ax, but yesterday in the ground, every time the ball went from a full-back to Xhaka or Ramsey across the pitch, I looked across to the other side of the pitch, and probably 9 times out of 10 there was no one there, absolutely no one on the other flank. Now, that then forces the centre midfielders to go back inside, back across. It slows the game up completely. And what we have had with Bellerin, that outlet Bellerin gives us, and Theo Walcott's retention of width, when we're seeing Iwobi come in narrow on the other side, what we did earlier on in the season, the fast Arsenal was happening because we were stretching the game and stretching the pitch. And that, for me, has nothing to do with the centre forward. I mean, if anything, it would aid Giroud if we played faster, because we'd have runners off him. And Danny Welbeck is the kind of guy that could provide that width on the left, and he done it a lot for United in big games. So Alex Ferguson liked him on the left against the best teams in the world, and he really could have a part to play there. But I do feel a bit for Giroud, but with regards to people saying he slows the game up, because if anything, I think he accelerates it with his intelligence and his link-up play. I just think we tend to play a slower style of play when Giroud's playing, which I can't work out why. But yeah, I mean, I was very, very happy with Wells back on the pitch, and I hope that it's every time I get down about the season and I look at the squad of players we've got and I look at the individuals and you just think, blimey, these individuals, even people like Ox, on that right wing, he could blaze past his man and put a delivery in. I mean, he done it at Bournemouth, didn't he? One fantastic cross for the Giroud flick on, and there's a lot of players there with a lot of abilities. And at Old Trafford as well, mate, exactly, coming on as a sub, blazing past his man, what a delivery. And I just want to see these players utilised correctly. We see Perez on the left-hand side every time, close to Giroud, his little movements, it's worked for him every time. And then just, can we get the best out of these players? Can we utilise them to their full abilities? And I see him, before Theo went out, I see Wenger, he started switching Theo back to the left a little bit in games, and I don't know, I just hope he ain't reverting back to what he done last season in the second half of the season, and I hope he be bold and brave, and maybe we do see Alexis and Ozil combining again up front as a two, but then the options there with Giroud, and there's going to be certain games, and especially over the next three we're talking about, they're all winnable games, but they're none of them teams are going to come at us, and that's where Olivier Giroud is at his best, because you can literally kick the ball to him 40 yards and he will soak it up and bounce off him, and people will get chances. But I just really hope Arsenal does get it right, because I still think there's a massive chance of us doing something brilliant this season, but it's gone a bit sour over the last month. But luckily, Axe, as you said, we've picked up decent amount of points over Christmas, and it's frustrating the two games just before Everton and Chelsea. Otherwise, it would have been a fantastic Christmas, wouldn't it? But let's hope we continue to push on, mate, really.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I think it would have been an absolute excellent Christmas. 7 points out of 9 would have been a great return if we had got something out of even one of the games, Everton and City, even if we had just won one of them. If we got 3 out of 6 there, then 7 out of 9 here would have been great. And that's probably the reason why I'm more disappointed that we haven't got 9 out of 9, because we sort of had to recover from 0 out of 6. But hey, if we can win the next sort of 4 and then go into that Chelsea game and we'll see where we are there.
Yeah, that's big game. Got some questions here. Got a question here from Martin Septim. He's put, what are your thoughts on Arsenal's 56 million bid for Andrea Bellotti?
If you're asking me, I don't think it's true. I think it's more an agent jobby, talking, drumming up interest in his client, to be honest with you. And I'd be very, very surprised if Arsenal did put in that sort of bid for Bellotti, but you never know, do you? But I just can't see anything happening this window, and I'm not sure it's true.
Yeah, I mean, in transfers, there was for the Gooner Ramble, I did a pod with Rafa Honigstein, and we talked about transfers a lot then, about how many sort of third parties there are, and when you're trying to sort of sign, you have to kind of get an inkling from the player. Does the player want to come? You need to then maybe use a third party to see what the club would accept. So, potentially there was maybe some sort of very light interest potentially there or something like that, because, clubs inquire about players all the time. It's not just, I'm sure top clubs inquire over sort of, 30, 40 players a year probably. So, and then, if any of those inquiries get leaked, suddenly you get a transfer story about it. So I think it's probably just one of them. I can't see it as being, an official bid that went in, because if there was an official bid, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've sent scouts to Torino to watch. I believe they've got a Brazilian right back. I can't remember his name, but I know I know we were looking at him in the summer.
I mean, you have scouts kind of covering regions and things like that, and often they'll have weeks where they're not particularly looking for any sort of a player. It's not a go look at this player. Sometimes it's just generally go and scout and see who's about, or it could be we want a goalkeeper, so go look around, and people just go to clubs and watch games and have a look, sort of thing. So just because we've got scouts there doesn't mean it's a particular player. It could just be a general kind of looking to see what's out there, sort of thing.
Yeah. And another question here from Stephen Lott. He put, will Welbeck's pace and energy be utilised from the start in the big games? And why don't we press properly?
Very good question. That's what kind of work.
Do you think the pressings without Sanchez, it doesn't seem to happen as often, because he normally encourages it, doesn't he?
He does, but
he likes them to go with him.
Do you know what? I think sometimes we get a bit too obsessed with pressing. I think it's not something that, 9 times out of 10 in football nowadays, people are crying out for their centre forward to be running around like an absolute nut job and exerting energy, and not every player can do what Sanchez does. I think we need to selectively press, and that's why Ozil got slated for that video at City away where he was sort of stood there looking like the laziest bloke in the world, but he was tired and he weren't exerting unnecessary energy when we got 2 banks of 4 behind the ball and there was no need to chase the ball like a nut job. And I think with regards to the comment about Welbs playing in the big games, I completely agree with that, 110%. And we've seen Alex Iwobi as a young lad and he's done very well, and but the big games have sort of bypassed him this year because he's just not quite at that stage yet. And you look at what I said about Welbs at Man United, in some of the biggest games they've ever played under Fergie, Welbeck was left wing, and because of his work rate, because of his high tempo, he's all action, he's always putting people under pressure, and certainly a front three of Welbeck, Alexis and Walcott in a big game. Theo for all his I can't even say it, anonymity or whatever it is. I know what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is when he ain't on the ball as much in games, he's a killer in the big games, and he does create and get them chances. And Welbs is all action, and he's certainly an option, and it's nice to have him back, and hopefully we can ease him in and sort of he can get to full fitness when it.
Who was it he kicked at Chelsea the other year? That's another thing I like about him. Don't take no shit. Yeah, who was it? Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
considering he's like one of the most manx you could ever hear. So he loves it, and he likes to see that from footballers, and he definitely will add that to our game. And certainly for big games, I'd have a lot more trust in Danny Welbeck on that left side than maybe Alex Iwobi or Lucas Perez. And depending on who plays centre forward, obviously there's a shout for Alexis being out there in big games and Giroud up front as well. But it's nice to have the options.
Yeah, I think we'll see Welbeck playing those big games. I think. When a manager like Sir Alex Ferguson, probably the greatest manager we've ever seen, trusts someone like Welbeck in the biggest games. I know when you were talking, what came to my mind was I think at the Bernabeu when Welbeck played left, wasn't it? And he was just fantastic, wasn't he, that night? And so I think we will see. I think that left hand side is a position that's going to be sort of shared about a bit, and I don't think it's. You sometimes think, obviously when Alexis plays there, but you think when, it's sometimes you always think there's a position there to be grabbed and someone is going to grab it. But actually on the left-hand side, I don't think it's going to be a position grabbed. I think it's going to be a position where Alexis plays when Giroud plays, he'll play there when Giroud plays. But at the same time, Alex Iwobi, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Danny Welbeck, I think we'll kind of share it around. Because I think when Walcott's fit, Walcott will play right. And I think there again, we can be a bit clever with rotation and play the Ox there, on that right-hand side, for that same reason about width and all that sort of thing. So I think on the left, there will be a bit of there'll be some games where Iwobi suited, some games where Welbeck suited. And I think, in the big games, I would love to see Danny Welbeck there. And I think we will actually. But, time will tell. But if Sir Alex Ferguson thought he was good enough to play there in big games, then who am I to argue?
Yeah, definitely agree. I'd like to see him more often now that he's back anyway. Hopefully, like you said was earlier, ease him in. Let's not get him, pelted left, right and centre in certain games. But yeah, I'm glad to see him back. We've got a question here from Jack Booth at BoothyBBK. He's put, do you think Arsenal will sign a right back in the January transfer window, and if so, who?
I don't think we will. I think it'll be shared between sort of Gabriel. I think maybe the difference in our plans might be to not loan out Rob Holding anymore. Those rumours Rob Holding would go, but I think potentially he'll now stay, which then means Gabriel can be cover for Hector Bellerin. You've got Xhaka back as well. So I think the right back would wait until sort of maybe the summer. And I think it's a position where it's quite difficult. I was thinking about this. It's quite difficult to buy a second choice right back, isn't it? In January, I mean, because you think of our two right backs, the reason they're going is because they both want to play. And you think other right backs around sort of the world, why would you move in January? It's usually only because you want to play, and sometimes if there's an international tournament coming, you want to get into the squad of your nation. But I mean, here there isn't really. It's hard to imagine unless you get someone sort of from, and no disrespect, but a slightly lesser club that the move to Arsenal just absolutely, makes sense for them, and they jump ship because it's Arsenal sort of thing and a bigger club and a chance to play in the Champions League and all that sort of stuff. But generally, why would you want to move in January? So I think it's going to be Gabriel covering, and I think Gabriel done quite well when he played there as well. So that's going to give optimism. I think if he had a shocker there, then it might be all thinking something different. But I just think that, I think Rob Holding will now stay. And I think there was a piece he did with the journo or TV a couple of days ago where he kind of said that, if someone had told him he's going to play 6 or 7 games or start 6 or 7 games, he would have been really over the moon. So that kind of just gives you an insight into his expectations for this season, that he wasn't expecting to start too much. And if we get a kind of a home draw in the FA Cup, then potentially Rob Holding could start that as well. So I think that's going to be the difference. We'll keep hold of Holding, and obviously Xhaka will be back as well as cover.
Is there anyone you've scouted at right back that you think we can have?
It's just like, I think Akhil hit the nail on the head, really, mate. It's almost impossible to find someone who is. Hector Bellerin is one of the top 3 right backs in Europe at the moment, and that's not an exaggeration. He's a fantastic young lad. He's signed a new long-term deal. He's going to be a gunner for years to come. Like, realistically, you're going to have to be bloody good to displace him, and it's very, very difficult to lure a player to the club that know that they're probably only going to get fleeting appearances, and right back during games isn't really a position you make many rotations, if you know what I mean. It's not as if you really see the right back getting subbed off during a game to rest him or anything like that. So it's difficult, and Debussy, it's a shame really, because Debussy would have been the perfect backup, but obviously he wants to play football and you can't blame him for that. And his injury record ever since the Arnautovic incident, which was so unlucky, which actually give Bellerin his chance. I mean, it's just been tough for him, but yeah, I don't think we can get too hung up on the next right back, but we just got to hope that Bellerin does maintain his fitness till the summer, and that's where Wenger and his scouting team earn their buns.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't thought of anybody, so I can't. I haven't got a name. I haven't got a name off the top of my head. I mean, I'm not going to do this FIFA scouting, so. There's a kid called Tetty from Ajax who's brilliant on FIFA. If you want to get him, I don't know.
I've had a question sent directly to me. Actually, it was about, we've mentioned him a few times, but Olivier Giroud, and it was actually in response to a tweet I'd posted, but they said you could maybe discuss it on the pod. But it's about sort of where would you put sort of Olivier Giroud's signing in terms of top signings or very good signings. I don't mean number 1 or number 4 or whatever, but generally, how do you sort of rate the signing of Olivier Giroud? And this kind of, there's a bit of background to this. This came from kind of when I was talking about sort of signings around the cost of the player, the quality of the player, their contribution to Arsenal, their length of service, all that sort of stuff. And I think Olivier Giroud has to be considered, like, in that, maybe not that top bracket, but certainly in the very, very good bracket, because I think at 12 million, in 2012, and for what he's done, but, nearly 100 goals for the club. He's been relatively injury free. Obviously, he had that one big injury, but he did come back early. He's carried the burden for a long time, certainly since Robin van Persie's gone. So you got to put him up there, and just in terms of value, I mean, at 12 million, I mean, I remember that summer, Joe Allen went for 15, and like Barini went for 10. I think Rodwell also went that same season for about 12, and I think even Matt Jarvis was about 9 or 10. So, you think that's the kind of, that was about the money people were paying for sort of average players who really, the ones I've just named, have they done much? I mean, Joe Allen's done well, but really have they done much. I think the same year Christian Benteke went to Villa for 7 million, and people did compare that and think actually Benteke looks like a better player. But I mean, sort of look at him now. He had his chance at a big club and didn't really impact it. So I think Olivier Giroud is certainly up there, in terms of, I think Asante Cazorla at 11 million, Laurent Koscielny at 8 million, but I think all three of them at the time were just really good signings. And I think that's, in terms of value, I think it was great value. Don't know what was, and James,
Yeah,
you
mate,
think?
I'll tell you, I couldn't agree more. And he's took his pelters over the years, Giroud, and it's not always been his fault. And his attitude from day one has been absolutely fantastic towards the club. He's never shied away. He's always worked hard. He's always welcomed competition. And like you said, the price we paid for him, and I actually think he was signed during a period of time that, like you say, players like Santi Cazorla and Lucas Podolski and Laurent Koscielny.
Yeah, exactly.
Players like that were all signed at a time where Wenger couldn't really pay the big money for the best of the best. And the interesting thing for me is that they've developed over the last...
Absolutely.
Later in their careers, I mean, Koscielny, Giroud and Santi have all blossomed. I mean, Podolski went down the wayside and he weren't quite there, but you would expect that for three out of them four signings. Three of them have all proven the older they've got, the better they've got. And I think Giroud's still got a lot to offer even now. And it's interesting that signing world-class players like Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil, there's not really a comparison to this. And Wenger has to take a lot of credit for bringing in them three players, and it's interesting to see how they've grown as footballers. And Olivier Giroud, I've always said, there's very few, if any, out there with their back to goal that are as good as him. And I think the older he gets, he's looking more mobile. He's as intelligent as he ever is. He's a handful. Centre backs don't like playing against him, and his attitude towards the game and towards the club is fantastic. And I'm very happy he's an Arsenal player, and he's an option. I've spoke many times this season that every time City win in the league with Edin Dzeko there, Olivier Giroud is massively important to this club because we have got nothing else like him, and there's not many, barring Zlatan, in the Premier League that you could really say that are of that build and of that style that are good enough. Very few teams have them now, and Giroud can play the fast game, but he can play with the ball on the feet. He's very skillful, he's very intelligent, but he's also a bully. I've seen him bully centre backs, and he's got to take a lot of credit, Arsenal, for that signing. And I still think he will clear 100 clearly, and hopefully got another 2 seasons in him, because even for 20 minutes of games, the next 2 years, he could easily come off the bench and make an impact, in my opinion.
He's definitely got to renew his contract soon, because he's like a cult hero for me. Sylvain Wiltord, I never thought that guy was one of the best players we had. But he'd always score really fucking important goals, and you'd be like, yes, Wiltord, quality. And Giroud at the moment, he just keeps popping up. Like, you can see that there's so many people that bait him, like big, like Arsenal fans, even the so-called celebrity Arsenal fans. They all, the Piers Morgans and this world. They fucking they sit there with the tweets lined up. Oh, I can't wait to slate him. But he just keeps proving them wrong, and it's quality. It's quality. I mean, I used to slate him all the time, but he defies logic. Like that goal the other week, you talk about it, he sprinted for that. He's sprinting. He just keeps doing things. It's magic.
In a funny sort of way, actually, I think I tweeted this earlier in the season, but he's actually become he's become more of a fan's favourite this season. Because I think the and it wasn't his fault, but the frustration many had was because he was that number one striker, and people didn't quite believe he was good enough to win the league, and all those Thierry Henry comments. But I think it was kind of unfair on him, because it wasn't the poor lad's fault. He was the only one who could play up front. And if you remember when we were linked with Luis Suarez, Olivier Giroud actually welcomed that move and said that it would be great to have someone like that who's a different style to me. And I think that's why he's kind of become more important, actually, not less important, because now he's an option, not the option. And I think actually you could argue he's more important now than he was before, because you lose that in games when things aren't going right and your number one option isn't working. Olivier Giroud then has to come and actually has more pressure on him to make the difference, which he's doing. So I think it's working well for him, and I'm glad he's here, and I hope he stays for as long as he can sort of play.
Just to sum him up quickly, he's not started a Premier League game all season until the last 3, and he scored in all 3 and got 2 assists. says a lot about the man, doesn't it? Says a
And
lot.
that's in about 8 days as well.
Yeah, it's in 8 days. Yeah, it's just you got to, and all four games over Christmas, he's played a massive part, and he's like a warrior at the moment. He's got his big old Viking beard, and I just love seeing him on the pitch at the moment. But it's going to be difficult because Wenger's got a big decision to make.
You can't drop him for me at the moment. I think he's doing too much.
Be very interesting, mate, to see what he does, but I never know anymore. But
Akhil, you got a piece on Ozil here?
Well, it was just.
You want to talk about?
Well, no, there's been obviously an interview, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Today with, I think the interviews in Germany, and he's, I don't know if you've seen the quotes, but he's obviously talked about wanting a bit. I mean, you can spin this the way you want. There'll be people, those pro Wenger sort of people that will spin it as he wants to know if Arsene Wenger's staying because he'll only stay that way, and that's probably not the truth. It's more, I think he wants clarification about the manager's future. He wants to know maybe who's going to be the manager because he has had his fingers burnt a little bit in the past, and he has a certain style, so you can't blame him for wanting to know sort of who the manager's going to be. But at the same time, he's also has spoken highly of Arsene Wenger, and he talks about when he joined that Arsene Wenger was a big reason for that, and he's happy and proud about the trust Arsene Wenger has showed him. So I think there's positives and not negatives, but there's positives for both groups of people in those quotes, and it's interesting to see because he indicates he's ready to sign, so. It says it's over to the club, so I mean, there's not much more to say about that really, but that's what he said.
Yeah, what I took from it was not like what you said, Ax. Not so much it is definitely if Wenger's staying, I'm staying, or whatever. He's not giving an ultimatum to the club. He sort of said he's happy playing at Arsenal. He wants to sign on, but he just needs clarification for what the future of the club holds. And I did speak about that a bit in the summer, and I do think that in the transfer market, with Wenger's future so indecisive that no one really knows whether he's going to stay another 2 years or it's his last season, or, I mean, if you're a player coming into the club, I mean, you're going to want these assurances, and it's the same for the existing players at the club, because this next contract is probably Mesut Ozil's last big hoo-ha before, he's going to hit that age, isn't he? So it's massive for him. The next 4 years of his career are huge, and it's the same for a lot of players, and we just need the assurances that if it is Arsene, that there is a plan at the club, because I'll tell you now, I wouldn't want to work for a company that I didn't know the boss would be in 6 months' time, and you didn't know what was happening, and you didn't know who would come in, and you're not going to commit there for 4 years if you don't know what's going on. And I think that's the long and short of it, and both players, I think, are very happy in London. I think they're very happy at Arsenal. I think we always read in too much about players' body language and all things like that. Deep down, if they weren't happy, I'm pretty sure something would be done about it. I just think that now it's down to the club to make the decision. Do they back Wenger for another 2 years? Then if they do, just do it. Sign him the contract. There'll be a lot of unhappy people. I'll probably be one of them. But at the end of the day, if that's the direction the club want to take, they need to be decisive, because if we do get to the summer and we still ain't sorted the Wenger situation out, then them contracts ain't going to be done for Ozil and Alexis, and it could go really pear-shaped. But I just fingers crossed it all plans out.
And there's even it affects it even more, because obviously you can only increase your wages by a certain percentage of your overall revenue and things like that. So if you don't actually know what you're going to be paying Ozil and Sanchez, then can you start renegotiating with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Jack Wilshere and the players that we have sort of who have got 18 months left as well? I mean, Wenger's hinted that Santi and Mertesacker will get an extra year, so it will trigger their contract, so we know what we'll be paying for them. But with the others, it just becomes a little bit difficult to negotiate, and it could turn into a bit of a mess in the summer, because then you've suddenly got a search for a new manager when major contracts are being negotiated. And as you said, it is, as much as football is a bit of a, it's different because of the sums of money and things like that, but it's still human beings basically working and working for a company. You know, you're playing for a club, but you're working for a company. And unlike us, we have notice periods. You know, if we get a new boss in who we don't like, we have a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, whatever notice period, and we can move on. But once you're signing a contract, it becomes a lot more difficult. I mean, obviously, it's all about player power, and you know, players can leave if they want to leave, and the clubs will sell them. But generally, it's a lot more complicated than that because you're signing a contract. So yeah, I think those comments about sort of wanting to know what's going to happen, I think is fair enough, really. But obviously, yeah, people will take it sort of as they take it and things like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's an interesting few months ahead.
I always thought to myself when we've talked about these two recently, I've always said that I thought Ozil would be the one who stays and Alexis would be the one who goes. But now, with all this, I'm thinking maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe it's going to be the other way around.
Let's hope they both stay, mate. Let's hope they both stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, God knows we need them, especially with this running coming up. So
I don't definitely there's any danger of them going tomorrow. So
no.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the next season and for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah, I think you've gone on a bit too much because Woz has left.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Woz can't handle it anymore. Not only is his voice had enough, he's had enough from me as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'll wrap it up here. I want to say thanks to Woz. Obviously, you can't say thanks back, but you probably would if you could. And thank you to you, Akhil, as well.
No problem at all.
No worries. Thank you very much. And thank you all for listening. Keep subscribing. If you can like and comment on the video, that'd be great. We love reading them, and we interact back as well with you guys. And then if you can leave a comment on iTunes as well, that will help us obviously get up a bit higher as well, which would be great. So thanks again, everybody, and take care.
Up the Arsenal.